All right. Hello, everybody. We are doing some Unity game dev right here, and we're going to be discussing the game that me and my wife are working on. We've been working on it for a little bit, and yeah, so I guess let's kind of just jump right into what we have so far. So the combat of the game is going to be some real-time action, almost like card combat, and we're gonna run this, and you guys will see what I'm talking about. So if I run this, you can see there's some cards here at the bottom. This is my player, obviously, and this is just a red guy who's the enemy. So the way that the game is going to work is we have these abilities. They're represented as cards right now, but eventually we'll want to change that. But what we're going to be able to do is take these abilities and drag them onto enemies. And once we drag them onto enemies, depending on their speed here at the bottom, maybe it's hard to see on the stream, but each maybe you can tell by the color coding, yellow being fast, blue being slow. If I change, whoops, if I change here, oh, you can see that red is an instant. That means that it happens immediately. So let's see if I can show you guys it in action. So if I were to take this card and drag it onto my enemy, you can see it's highlighted. Once I let go of this, you'll see that the ability is going to be queued up, and once its time has taken, the ability will resolve. So once I let go here, you can see it happened really fast, but that ability took place, the opponent took the damage, and the effect that this ability has resolved over time. Yeah, so there's different speeds. So if we were to drag this Inferno ability over it, it would take a little bit longer. You can see it's a 5-second timer instead of a 2-second timer, I believe. And then there we go. The enemy is dead, and we win. So we can restart this. So one thing that I really wanted to work on is this is obviously placeholder art, so we're trying to work the scene to be 3-dimensional, and we actually have a scene in progress. Let me go to that. So you can see here, this is our 3-dimensional scene, and this is all art that my wife has made, and she will be streaming tomorrow. So if you guys want to see how these assets were made, or the progress that we're going to be making on the art side, she's starting her stream tomorrow at the same time. Okay, so I think the first thing we want to do is show off the coding portion of it. So what I'm actually doing for this project is I'm using Cursor to basically handle my coding. Obviously I am a game developer and have been for a while, so I understand programming and code and Unity really well. But I wanted to see if using Cursor could speed up that process, or just provide more freedom to dev things that maybe are a little more sensitive versus things that are kind of like blueprints, right? And I just wanted to see how that workflow would work, and so far it's been pretty good. So let's take a quick look at that. Alrighty, so one thing I want to do first is I want to get a new chat. We're gonna ask it how to convert our two-dimensional targeting system into something that's three-dimensional. So let's ask it and see what it spits out, and you know, we can go from there. Probably won't have the perfect answer, but you know, let's just see what happens. So we have a 2D. Whoops. I gotta change my hotkeys here. I'm gonna do that really quick. Get rid of my hotkeys completely. So yeah, we have a 2D targeting system in place, and I would like to convert it into 3D. What are the required steps to accomplish this? So let's see what it spit out. So yes, currently I'm using drop zone components attached to UI elements and the event system. That's correct. Enemies are UI elements. No 2D physics, right? So let's see. We want to replace the UI drop zones with 3D colliders, remove drop zone from UI elements, and add 3D colliders to the game objects. I believe this step is already complete, but we'll double check it. And obviously this makes perfect sense, right? If we're going from 2D to 3D, we need to be able to actually shoot a raycast based on you know, where we're dragging the mouse / card, and then shoot a raycast from that position over to the object, and therefore we'd need some kind of a collider on our objects. Yeah, implement 3D raycasting for mouse clicks. This makes sense, right? This is kind of what I was just saying. Yeah, screen point to ray or a specific camera reference, that makes sense. Update our input handling. Let's see, modify or extend input manager to handle 3D raycasting. Add mouse click detection. Yeah, so this, I think we'll wait on this one. Yeah, these two are kind of one and the same. I believe this one's just kind of saying the way that we do number 2 could be different. And then yeah, updating the visual feedback, sure. Update our enemy representation, ensure enemies are 3D objects, right? Blah blah blah. Camera setup. We do have 3D camera in the new scene. So let's see. Create a new targetable 3D component to attach to enemy objects. Create a targeting raycaster 3D script to handle mouse clicks. Update drop zone or create a new system. add visual feedback. So let's see. I think the first things first, what might be nice is to just have a 3D targeting script. That way we can just test and see if it works in our scene. So let's see. Let's work on creating the 3D targeting scripts. Alright, spitting out a lot of code here. Definitely a lot to review. Okay, well, let's see what it's spat out here, huh? Okay, so if we have a targetable 3D, we have our character controller, the collider, hover indicator. I guess it's giving us some optional feedback. And then a selected indicator, okay. Cached collider is hovered, is selected. All this is fine. Getting the character controller, valid target. That's fair. Get collider. Makes sense. Yeah, setting hovered, setting selected, updating the visual feedback. We're getting the collider on awake. Makes sense. Initializing our visual feedback. Try to find the character controller if it's not assigned, and then we can set the character controller. Okay, so let's see. What's the next script here? So here's our main targeting system. This is our singleton instancing code, pretty boilerplate. Target camera makes sense. We want to tell it what camera to use when we're making our targeting. Max raycast distance, that makes sense. Yeah, just in case we want a different layer for different targeting, that's fine. Show debug ray, that's just nice, and a color, very helpful in the scene. And then, yeah, our targetable 3D being the current and the last clicked. So more singleton stuff, grabbing the target camera, makes sense, makes sense. Only process targeting if we're in targeting mode. That makes sense. Our targeting manager, we're probably gonna have to change some stuff here, but we'll take a look at that in a sec. Handle mouse input, handle gamepad targeting. This seems not the best. Just kind of lumping both of them together. We should probably pick one or the other. But right now we're trying to just get something working, so we'll take a look at that maybe later. All right, handle mouse targeting. This is probably pretty straightforward. We have our input manager, we're getting the position. We got the ray, we've got the hit. And then if we hit, and what we hit is targetable, or has a targetable 3D, and it's a valid target, if current hovered target is not equal to targetable, clear hover. That makes sense. Yeah, if the current thing we're hovering over is not the targetable 3D thing that we are looking at. So flip it over, say we're hovered, get the character controller, on enemy hovered, invoke. Select target. This might be a little different than what I want. It seems like it might be trying to make it so that I click on the enemy, which is kind of strange if I'm dragging an ability across the screen. So we'll have to see how that actually works. Oh, it didn't even bother writing the gamepad targeting, which is fine. I do have it working for the 2D system, but we'll figure it out. All right, select target. Controller. So let's see, what is this doing? Called on the click. So one thing I'm noticing is it's on click, not on drag and let go. So let's see if we can ask it about that. So these scripts seem to function on a click basis. I would like to select and drag a card onto a 3D enemy and have the ability resolve. It seems like the function select target happens on click. Alright, let's see what this updated version has. Validate cards during drag. That's nice. Switch from click base to drag base. Detects targets during drag. Updated card drag in to check 3D targets first, then fall back to UI drop zones. Okay. So it's trying to make both of them work, which for now is fine. User starts dragging a card. During the drag, continuously ray casts. guess. I don't like the sound of that. But I guess there's no other way to check if we're actually hovering over something, and maybe it's not that bad. Something to keep an eye on though. So user drops the card, it checks for a hovered 3D target. If it's valid, right, then it does the execution. If no 3D target, falls back to UI drop zone. So let's see if we can just add these scripts. And give me some steps on how to implement them in the Unity editor. Oh, interesting. I need to change it to agent mode. Guess I needed to be in agent mode. I was in ask mode. I've actually haven't had it do this, so let's see how it works. There it is, just added to our project. Pretty cool. Alright, so it added in the files and now it's showing us how we can test. So let's see what happens. Let's read it. For each 3D enemy game object, we can add our targetable 3D, ensure it has a collider, assign the character collider, hover indicator, select an indicator, we'll leave that for later. Using the helper, select the game enemy object, add the component targetable 3D setup. Add targetable component, auto add collider. That's interesting. It gave us a nice little setup. Kind of cool. Right, we don't actually need to create this. And then it should just work. The card should execute on the enemy. I like that it says that. It should. Well then, let's take a look. Oh, and we've got errors. Oh, that's a namespace issue. Let's see. Let's have it fix that. So yeah, it's a namespace issue because character controller is in controllers. Let's see, give it the error. If I get this error, can you please qualify all references to character controller with controllers? Whoops, controllers dot character controller. See if we can figure that out. Alright, that should have fixed it. Let's see if it actually fixed it. It fixed it, but only for some of the references? Yeah, I mean it did it. It's forgot it in certain places. Let's see. Maybe even in parameters and everywhere in the related files. Let's see if that prompt is specific enough for it to figure it out. There we go, did find it. All right, let's see. Oh, so close. But this is unrelated to. Why does it think card model is in core? It's in models. That's weird. I don't understand why it thinks what it's thinking. But hey, this is why people don't like AI coding, right? Lots of problems. But as long as you know what you're doing, you just fix them. Okay. So now that we have no more errors, let's go back to what we want to do here. So select an enemy game object. Well, first things first, let's make sure our card draw is working. So I'm gonna get rid of our player and our enemy. Our hand is still working, our drag manager is still there. So I think if I run this, we should still see our hand. Yeah, okay. So we still see the hand. And of course, whoa. You can see here we're in an actual 3D scene. So let's see if what it spat out actually works. So let's go to our enemies. Let's add, what was it, targetable. 3D setup is interesting. It's just does it for us, but I'm just gonna do targetable 3D. What is this? Target collider. What is this error? Get component in parent. What's the error we're getting? Get component requires that the requested component derives from model behavior. I mean, does character controller not derive? How does that work? It does not. You can see here our character controller is actually just a class where that's storing a bunch of information that's relevant to our character. It's not actually a model behavior. So that's a problem. But let's see why we're trying to do that in the first place. So it's just trying to find the character controller. And it's checking for a bunch of stuff like is it dead and all this stuff. So that's interesting. It can't find it. Let's see what it says, huh? If character controller is not a mono behavior, I wonder if it just suggests making it a mono behavior. Well, let's give it the error. See what it thinks. I don't really want to, though. Since I don't really want it to keep track of any sort of, update or anything like that. It doesn't really use any of mono behaviors. Model behaviors capabilities, we'll say. Let's see what it says, huh? It's an interesting moment. Yeah. It just is like, oh, make sure you set it. Which is funny. Oh, and it thinks interesting, okay. I don't know why it thinks those things are in core. Yeah, interesting. Okay. So it basically is like, don't worry about it. So let's see if these. Let's see if we can set some of these. Some really basic hover indicators. Let's just make them a cube and a sphere. Say hover indicator, and we're just testing. We just want to see. Want to see if these guys can be turned on and off on hover and on select. Oh, right. Wait, is it select or? Yeah, selected. Which I think is weird considering. Okay. So we'll just put that right there. And we'll have this guy just right there. And I guess let's give this a try, huh? See what happens. Okay. So the things are off, which is good. Now what should happen is when we drag. Oh yeah, our AI is broken. That's another thing we're gonna have to fix. We're gonna disable AI. Okay, let's try that again. So yeah, what should happen is if we drag ignite over our bomb, the hover indicator should trigger. But let's see what happens. Nothing. Great. To be expected, I guess. Why would it work on the first? Why would it work on the first try? Well, it could be the collider, I guess. Let's double check the collider. Nope, we got a big old collider. I guess I can make it a little bigger. Okay, I mean that's a very reasonably sized collider. Let's see. Nothing. Of course. I guess we can just ask it very blatantly. My hover indicator did not show up when I dragged a card over my enemy. How can I troubleshoot this best? All right, let's see what it tells us to do, huh? With targeting Raycaster 3D component. Oh. I guess we'll add that. Raycaster 3D. Okay. I mean, 1,000 should be long enough, but let's just change it to 3,000. Enable debug logging. Okay. Select each game object with targetable 3D components. In the inspector, enable debug logging. Okay. One enemy. Enable debug logging. Check. And then we need to see what happens, I guess. So let's try it. Let's see what happens. Not in targeting state. Oh. Okay. So the hovering works, as you can see, which is good, but our selecting doesn't work. So it doesn't actually, well, it hits, but it doesn't actually do the action. So let's see why. Let's ask it about that. Okay, so the hovering indicator seems to be working now. So when I drag a card over my enemy, I see the indicator. However, upon release, let's see what we actually got here. So the raycast did hit, which is good, but it didn't actually execute the card. The raycast did hit our enemy, but the card did not execute or be / wasn't added to our action queue. Let's see what it says about that. What do you have to say for yourself? This makes sense, right? The hover target might be cleared before we actually try and execute, so it's... that makes sense. Yeah, some of the decisions that the AI makes, very interesting. It sometimes it's really smart and it knows exactly what to do. And then other times it blatantly forgets something super obvious. Something like this, right? Where it's like, oh, I have the hover target and then I can execute a card on it. But oh, I actually deleted that reference. And you're like, oh, don't you need that reference? And then you tell it, hey, just double check your work. And then it's like, oh, you know what? It might be this area where I'm not, I'm losing the reference. Yeah, you didn't know that before I said something? Really funny. All right, so what does it say? This makes sense. Performs a final raycast. Why am I doing 2 raycasts? Oh, I guess this is the hovered target. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Interesting. Well, it says it fixed it. Let's see if you actually did. Okay. No. Interesting. So it did not work. No 3D target found on drag end. Found nothing. Why is that? Really weird. Okay. Let's see. I am getting, let's see what we were getting. On drag end. A null reference to the hovered 3D target. Let's see. I also get no, what is it? No 3D target found on drag end. Oh, stop. No 3D target found on drag end. But I do get the hit on hover. So please just make sure when I let go, it works on that enemy. Once again, really weird. It said it found the error, and then it said that it fixed the error, and then I ran into the same exact error. Really weird. I mean, I like that it says this. Try it now. The target should be preserved. Should be preserved, right? That's what you said last time. Okay, let's try it again. So hovering works. Okay. Something is horribly wrong. Let's take a look at some of this code, huh? What did you actually spit out for us? I'll need this 3D setup. Alright, let's take a look at this targetable 3D, huh? Not much going on there. Okay, so the bulk of the work must be done in this, which makes sense. Let's actually see if we can see some of this. Okay. So something about this current hovered target and last hovered target, preserve last hovered target for dragon. I mean, something about this is just not working, right? So we have this handle drag targeting. So all this is working, right? Get the current dragged card. Why is drag card null? Why is it doing that? Oh, I see. Drag manager, not. I thought this was drag card, and I was like, that's really weird. Okay, so yeah. We've got our drag manager. It's not null. We get the currently dragged card. Is valid, blah, blah, blah. So this is all happening on update, right? So it's constantly being targeted. So I mean, we're setting last hovered. Where's this being called? This is called in card drag manager. That seems weird. Why is it doing this? It's like double checking, triple checking. I feel like it doesn't need to do all this, right? Because I mean, it's trying to be safe, but I feel like by trying to be safe, it's just not doing anything. It's also just a terrible system because this handle drag targeting is called on update, which happens every single frame. And so as soon as I let go, those values are going to be cleared. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, clear hover. What does that do? Okay, it just clears the hover. This still is like really weird. So get hover to target at position. Does another raycast? I mean, if it's doing that, shouldn't it hit? This is really weird, huh? So I mean, that is technically the mouse position. Because this pointer event data is the mouse. Really weird, huh? Get hovered target. So what are we actually returning here? So this, for some reason, this line, if we look at Unity, is returning null. Which means we're here. Which means none of this works. I don't see how that's possible. What I want to know is why is it doing any of this? Just send the... there's an obvious disconnect here. I mean, it's just on this drag end, it's trying to access this system, and the system just doesn't know. Because it keeps updating. So I mean, if I were to even just hold it over it, so right there. Current and the last. Huh. Maybe this is valid target isn't actually working. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Is valid target, huh? Did we set our reference? I believe we did. Did we just not set our reference? Is that all we did? We just didn't set the reference. I think we didn't set the reference. It's also not showing up here on the Unity side. We just didn't set our reference to that character controller. Interesting. Yeah. That's our issue, though. It's definitely this. It's definitely this. So this character controller, what? I believe these are being set in our initialize. In our initialization. Yeah. So our test scene, which is basically our kind of like our game manager at the moment. It's a terrible name, but we'll fix it. Right now it's our character controller. Okay. So that's our issue. So let's tell it, let's give it the issue. We're gonna say character controller is a component only initialized at runtime. in character test scene .cs. Is there another way to validate a target? Let's see what it says about this. Creating a registry, huh? I guess that's better than accessing the scene. Having a registry of all of our controllers is probably nice. Changing a lot of files though. All right. Mapping character view to controller. Okay. Yeah, so we create the character control instances, registers them with the registry. That's kind of cool. Then during targeting, looks up the character controller from the registry using the character view. Okay. That makes sense to me. But let's see if we can actually get it to work. So the character view here is this enemy. I'm going to disable this. Yeah, we'll keep the rest. We'll move it over later. So yeah, that's our character view there. I guess technically we should add a targetable 3D here, and that's our player. We'll do the same thing here. Just get rid of that. Character view, collider. We'll leave that off for now. Okay. Let's see if that fixed it, huh? Hey, look at that. It looks funny, but it worked. You can see here I can drag it on top of him, and that triggers our ability. All right, pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, let's see if we can clean it up just a little bit. I'm gonna actually get rid of this drop zone because that was the 2D system. We're in our 3D scene. And yeah, let's see what it looks like now. Cool. All right, let's take a look at some of this code, huh? See if there's anything weird going on. So this is our registry. As you can see here, this is the registry that it created. It's got the instance, classic instance stuff. View to controller maps the view to the controller, maps the game object. Okay. Register. So it takes the controller and that maps the view. And that way we can access all the character controllers based on the view, which I think makes sense. At some point we might need, we're gonna need those controller values. Because if we take a look at our character controller, basically what our character controller is, it handles a lot of things for us. So it has the reference to the model itself, which is all the data. Then it has our view, which is just the visual representation of our character in our game. It also has that character's equipment controller, the active equipment slot, and then it kind of handles like the runtime data, essentially. Like it has its current hit points, the status effects, what actions it has queued. So there might be other instances where we might want access to this character controller where we may not necessarily have access to it. And having it in a registry based on the view, sure. I mean, I think it's fine. It works. And it doesn't seem to be breaking. So that's good. Alright, let's take a look at this targetable 3D. Okay, so now this targetable takes the view so that it can map it to the controller, basically, which I guess is fine. I mean, if you're targetable, you've got a view. And then yeah, this character controller is going to be set. We've got the collider, the indicators, the Boolean states. This is checking the registry. Checks to see if the view is null. Try again from the registry. Is valid target. We get the controller. Which is this. Checks to see if it's dead. Is valid target for card. Seems interesting. Because I do have cards that target multiple enemies. Maybe we should try that and see if that actually works with the new system. And I wonder how that works at all, right? I mean, is it just as long as I hover and drop it over one enemy, it just targets all the enemies? Ultimately, that probably needs to change. It probably should be different. And in general, the drag and drop system might not be ideal for the game period. Might want something like more classic turn-based. You know, you click on the ability and then you click on the enemy. But we'll see. We're gonna play test before we make that decision. But we should check to see if we can target multiple enemies. I guess we should try that now. Shouldn't be too hard. I'm gonna turn these indicators off. And then I'll turn this bomb, maybe this bomb. Okay. Turn on enemy 2. Add the targetable character view. All right, let's actually flop these. Bomb 1 should be 2. Bomb 2 is 1. Very weird, I know. Okay. So we dragged those 2 on there. Now let's see, let's check our cards and see if we have any cards that actually target everybody. Let's just make a new card. Call it target all. Target all. We'll make it fast. We'll make the base damage 20. Doesn't cost any. This targets everyone. Targeting type. All enemies. No status effects. Yeah, we'll keep it simple. Okay. So we should add it to some of our equipment. Just add it here. Target all. And let's see if it works, huh? Enemy models. We need 2. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. So, let's see if this works. Okay, the targeting seems to work like that. Let's see if it works for this guy. Yep, looks like it works. Okay, let's see if this target all works. Don't like that. Did not target all enemies. Interesting. So for some reason our target all isn't working. Let's figure out why. Let's ask the almighty AI. See what it says. I figured this was the case. Our drag doesn't actually handle all enemy cards. And then executing also doesn't handle it. Pretty simple check though, I think. Just when you drag on an enemy, you see if you can target all enemies. And you know, this might get weird if you have restrictions on targeting all enemies. Like for example, if you had something that said can't target this enemy if it's burned or something, right? Like an enemy is burned, so I can't target it, and then I drop like you know, target all enemies, you know, and then it actually tries to hit the target, but it shouldn't be able to because it has a certain status effect. But we'll keep it simple for now, where if the card says it targets all enemies, it just targets all enemies, right? Checks if card only targets all enemies. Yeah, so basically the cards or abilities in the game can target multiple things. They can target an enemy, they can target all enemies, they can also target other abilities. That's because I have abilities that can either speed up the execution of an ability, counter certain abilities, so I had to make the distinction there. And I also thought it might be interesting to have abilities that can kind of handle multiple targeting systems. So what that means is you might have an ability that says deal 20 damage, or like, and then another part of the card or the ability says, you know, counter slow action, right? So you could either drag that ability onto an enemy and have it deal 20 damage, or you could drag that ability onto an action, and a slow action, for example, and have it be countered. So what this is trying to say is that if you have a card that targets all enemies and a single enemy, it's just going to default to the all enemies, which makes sense. So it says it should be fixed. Let's see it actually work. Alright, let's run it. Let's see it work. Alright, target all. Oh, it just executes. What? That didn't work at all. It doesn't even let me drag it. It just tries to execute it and then doesn't execute it. Wow, that was bad. Okay. I couldn't drag the card. It automatically executed on click and queued up properly, but didn't affect any enemies. I would like to be able to drag the card over enemies. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah, I wonder what went wrong, huh? Use card once for each alive. All enemy cards. Okay. Previously queued once with null target, which did nothing. Amazing. Applies to its specific target. I don't know if this is the behavior I want, right? From what I'm reading, it seems to want to queue multiple things, which I don't want, right? But let's see what it actually did. Because it should be one action. Okay. Now it just doesn't. Now it just doesn't do anything. Great. Fantastic. And it always targets one enemy. That's cool. Yeah, they're not working. This did not work. The drag worked, but the target was always a single enemy. I have two enemies, and only one's health was affected by the execution of the action. Let's see, how can we resolve this? There should, the ideal, right? I guess we could give it the ideal. The ideal scenario is one action is queued up that targets that on resolution affects all enemies that are alive. Right? Basically, once it's queued up, it runs the execution and then once it actually tries to execute, it should just check the enemy list, and just be like, oh, all these are the enemies that are alive, apply the effect onto these enemies. Yeah, what is this? Null, though. Alright. Q once with null target. Sure, I mean, that's fine. Resolve all enemies action. Gets all alive enemies from targeting manager. Applies to each. Applies status effect. Applies synergy effects. That makes sense. Checks if the action is an all enemies card. Routes to resolve all enemies action. Drag all enemies card, enters targeting mode, drop on an enemy, Qs once with null target, resolve all enemies action, resolution. Well, it says it fixed it. Let's see if it's a liar. Here we go. Hey, it fixed it. Turns out you just need to tell it how it needs to do something. Pretty interesting though, right? Where you can just you think you know what you're telling it to do, but if you're just more specific, I think the key here was telling it how to do it, right? Is ultimately what gave us the right answer. Because for some reason or another, it thinks it knows how to target these enemies. But in reality, all you need to do is, when you resolve the action, just check all the, if it's an all enemy resolution, just get all the enemies and run the action on all the enemies. You don't need to jump through some weird hoop. So it's interesting that just telling it that seems to have solved the issue. Plus now we don't have this weird loop. And I do like the null pass, right? It's just like, oh, okay. If it's null, that means our target is everybody, or all the enemies at least. So that's kind of nice. Alright, cool. So we got, let's go back, look at some more code. So yeah, now we have this all enemies working properly, which is nice. Getting the collider, blah blah blah. This is all visual feedback. Okay, so that's our targetable. Here's our targetable 3D setup, which we didn't end up using. And to be honest, I don't know why it even created this. I guess it's nice. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. Targeting manager, we definitely made some changes here. So it looks like so this is in preparing the card to drag. We get what we can target, which in our case is enemy player, all enemies, or a queued up action. I don't like this auto execute. I don't want this auto execute. But I don't necessarily have any cards that target the player at the moment. So we can fix that when we get there. And then yeah, I guess we have this targeting, which is fine. Here's the playing on all the enemies. So yeah, we're calling that. And then we actually execute. We queue the card. And then we call complete targeting, which I think just resets everything. So that's cool. What's this? Oh yeah, this is our Raycaster. Let's see what's going on here, huh? Singleton stuff. This last target stuff. Something about all this is just doesn't sit right with me. Seems like overtly complex, but it is working properly, and it does. And in some world, we do kind of need to be constantly raycasting. If we want things to change on hover, right? Otherwise, how do we know when to do things? So it's probably fine. And this is the dragging, which we've seen is fully functional. Basically just takes the raycast. If we hit something that's targetable, get the current card, check if it's a valid target for the card, and then that's really it. It's just all the targeting Raycaster is doing is essentially making sure that the target that we're hovering over at the moment is a valid target, and that the card can actually be executed on that target. Just more targeting stuff. Execute. It's probably important. This is weird. Execute drop on valid target. Isn't that what our targeting manager is doing? Oh, I see. It's just preparing it. That makes sense. Yeah. So our our targeting manager prepares it, and then our Raycaster actually executes it. That makes sense. This is just some registering and some simple stuff here. Let's see what changed here. This is the registry stuff, which I kind of like actually. This is our drag manager. So this is just doing the 3D ray casting stuff for us. Once it's over, we execute the drop. Pretty straightforward. All right, I mean those are all the scripts that changed, I guess. pretty solid. So that's pretty cool. We got 3D targeting working. It's pretty awesome. What are some next steps? I think obviously our visuals are in the works. We definitely need to modify the UI to look cooler. And there's oh, the AI wasn't working. Yeah, let's try to fix that. We only have a little bit more time, but let's see if it can figure out our AI issues. Let's give it the error maybe. So if we enable AI, it doesn't work. All right. So let's see. When I enable AI, I run into this error. Can you trace the problem? So I think the issue here is the AI controller hasn't been updated in a while, and I've made some dramatic changes to the card/equipment system. So let's see if it just can check our play card, because essentially, right, whether or not you're an enemy or a player, you're doing the same action in terms of playing the card. There's no real difference. Underneath the hood, right, the enemy also has like a hand of cards that it's executing. So maybe it just couldn't find it. I see. Well, cool. Let's see if that fixed our problem. And then we actually have AI working and our stuff working. So we can kind of play test. Let's see if it works. Yeah, look at that. Enemies are queuing up. And I'm dead. Yeah, here I can show this counter, right? I can actually drag it over this and counter abilities, which is pretty cool. Oh, and I died again. All our abilities are way too strong for sure, but I can counter. I can heal. Oh. All right, yeah, these numbers need to change. We can also try having just one enemy. But, you know, at some point, I'm thinking 3 enemies is kind of the max for a combat system like this. Having it be real time. So yeah, maybe we can spend a little bit of time just talking about the game itself. I'll turn off the AI. Where'd it go? guess we can talk about it a little bit. So what we have is, you can see I'm like cycling through different weapon slots or equipment slots is really what I'm calling them. And each equipment slot corresponds to a certain number of abilities. And you can cycle through them, you know, using at some point we'll figure out the exact controls, but right now I'm just using the numbers 1, 2, and 3. And we'll have more than just those 3. I mean, the way I think about it, it's probably going to be something like your head, your 2 hands, you know, chest, legs, feet, maybe like shoulders. Haven't fully thought of everything there, but basically you'll have these like different equipment slots where you can attach a weapon. So let's say you have your main hand, you attach the flame sword, and the flame sword comes with a certain set of abilities. In our case, it's Ignite, Inferno, Meteor, and Target All. And you can cycle through these real time during combat, right? And then as I've demonstrated, basically you can pick up the ability, drag it over an enemy, and then have that ability queued up. So let's see, let's pause it. So yeah, you can see the ability is queued up, and I can actually queue up multiple abilities. So if I'm fast enough, wait, can I only queue up one thing? Is my limit 1? I have a limit somewhere. Let me find it. Yeah, it was 1. I'm gonna set it to 3. Just to show it off. Obviously at the beginning of the game you'll probably just have 1, but I want to show you guys. So you can queue this. So you can see you can queue up multiple actions, and then those actions resolve after a certain amount of time. And then you also saw earlier I had that counter ability, which basically just removes an action from a queue. So that's kind of the combat of the game, right? It's this real-time combat using a bunch of like cooldowns and different abilities and status effects, and there's all these little knobs and levers that I'm going to be making cards and abilities that it'll mess with. So what do I mean by that? It's like there's obviously damage over time. You know, you can burn somebody and they take damage over time. There's going to be, you know, there's effects like chill, where their actions take X amount of seconds longer to execute. You know, there's your basic RPG things like, you know, attack raises, defense raises. Yeah, those are the big ones. There's a lot more. trying to remember all of them. Yeah, counters, I said. Yeah, you can speed up your own actions. You know, you can drag something on there. You can heal yourself, of course. Yeah, so what I'm hoping to have, as you can see, I kind of have it somewhat functional at the moment with the queue and the enemies, and the cards are all pretty functional. So I think the next step would be to actually just kind of play test this and see see how well the system works, and if it's fun. But outside of combat, what we're actually working on, I can show that off a little bit as well, is basically what happens outside of combat. And what that is, it's actually in another project. See if I can pull that up really quick. Okay. So you can see here, the game is going to be, you know, a little 3D environment. Obviously, she will be animated. We're working on that. But yeah, you're going to be able to walk around. There's going to be a whole environment, blah, blah, blah. And then once you run into enemies, you know, then our combat takes place. And this is an old scene that we were testing, so nothing actually works, but I think you guys get the point. There's going to be some cool 3D world that you're walking around, and aesthetically what we're going for is some kind of retro futurism, and stylistically, I think some of our inspirations are, you know, Psychonauts. Psychonauts is the big one, actually. Their art is just so cool, and just kind of that style of art. But yeah, that's the idea. And then the world itself, maybe a little bit about the world and the story. You know, it's set in, you know, we haven't fully figured out all of the intricacies of the story, but what we like is this future that isn't, it's, I mean, you know, everyone loves like a bleak future, right? That's so in vogue. But we're hoping that the way we approach that bleak future is with a sense of humor. And I think a lot of games try and, you know, portray the future as this apocalyptic or just very like dystopian world. Whereas I think, though that's really cool, I just think personally, like, what I find interesting is finding the humor in all of that. And if anyone's seen the movie Brazil, that's a great example of a somewhat dystopian future, but you know, the director and the story itself is very comedic in its delivery. So yeah, I think the world, that's the world we're trying to build, and then the combat is this real-time action, kind of like ability queuing system. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then yeah, so tomorrow my wife should be streaming, and she'll be streaming some art stuff. I don't know what she'll be working on, but she'll be working on something. Probably this hallway is what she'll be working on. And then I'll be streaming again on Sunday. And what I'll be doing is a great question. Probably working on the UI, because I think some of the information that I need to have presented needs some work before I can actually, playtest. I mean, I might after I modify some UI, I think it might be as simple as like making a build and putting it out there, and I think people can just play it. At least have some feedback for the gameplay itself. I just think the UI could use a little bit of polish because it right now is a little too placeholdery, but you could always fix that. But yeah, I think that's it for the stream. So I will see you guys on Sunday. Peace.